Before navigating the obscure dimensions of our collective memory, a brief clarification. The narrative you are about to experience is a work of historical fiction. It is intricately woven from authentic strategic maneuvers of a transformative era, crafted to illuminate the silent fortitude of individuals whose echoes were long eclipsed by the formal archives of time. History is never truly gone. It merely hides beneath the layers of time, waiting for a single touch to resonate once more. We often view the past as a closed book, but occasionally a minute fracture in the fabric of reality reveals a truth that was never meant for the official record. Before we descend into these historical shadows, a brief note. The journey we are about to take is a historical, hypothetical reconstruction. It is a bridge connecting existing artifacts with unexplored possibilities, designed to illuminate the quiet resilience of those eclipsed by the tides of their era. Within the strictly climate-controlled chambers of the Smithsonian, there exists a creation that seems to have been bypassed by the current of modernity. It is a portrait from the year 1900. In March 2024, Dr. Maya Freeman, a decoder of cultural structures, unintentionally reawakened this entity. Through the lens of systemic analysis, this photograph is no longer just a fading sepia-toned relic. It becomes a multi-layered information system. 6 individuals, one family captured with a formality that borders on the severe. In an age of agonizingly long exposure times, every second spent motionless was a deliberate choice. They weren't just taking a picture, they were asserting their existence within a paradigm of profound social friction. Observe the nonverbal lexicon of the subjects. The father's shoulders bear the weight of invisible mandates. The mother's gaze holds the steadfastness of a transitional generation. Yet the epicenter of the anomaly lies with the youngest child. In a space defined by rigid etiquette, the girl's left hand is not resting naturally. It is raised, forming a peculiar geometric structure against her chest. The hypothesis. Why would a child execute such a high-level symbolic gesture during a moment requiring absolute stillness? This was not a random occurrence. This was a trans-temporal signal. 3 fingers extended the intricate interlocking of small joints. It acts as a command code sent from the past into the future. Official history suggests that the clandestine pathways ceased operations in 1865. But the reality may be far more complex. Could it be that networks of protection and connection endured, silently manifesting as symbols recognizable only to those on the same frequency? In Mississippi circa 1900, as invisible barriers were tightening, non-verbal communication became a weapon of the intellect. What was this family concealing behind their composed exterior? Was the artificial studio backdrop, the painted gardens and faux pillars, actually a shroud for a much more vital message? Dr. Freeman could not look away from the enlarged print. She realized she wasn't just studying a photograph. She was facing a humanistic cipher. 5 days of sleepless scrutiny followed. Thousands of census records and maps were cross-referenced. This search was not merely for a name, but for an answer to a profound question. How is courage inherited through silent signals even when voices are suppressed by the walls of their time? Maya immersed herself in academic treatises regarding the systemic survival architectures of post-emancipation Southern communities. The child's gesture remained a haunting anomaly. Those three interlaced fingers represented a deliberate configuration, yet they were conspicuously absent from any official archive. She methodically audited every recorded clandestine communication protocol, from geometric quilt patterns to subtextual frequencies in folk songs. Nothing aligned. This was a new variable in the historical equation. On the sixth day, Maya contacted Dr. Elliot Richardson, a preeminent scholar who had spent 45 years decoding decentralized resistance networks. When the high-resolution files were transmitted, the response was instantaneous and marked urgent. Elliot's voice over the line vibrated with suppressed tectonic energy. "This photograph is the physical proof we have been searching for. It fundamentally shifts our understanding of structural continuity." He explained that the notion of clandestine support networks dissolving in 1865 is a simplified public narrative. In reality, as federal protections retracted, an era of profound systemic instability emerged. They did not dissipate. They re-engineered, Elliot clarified. The original navigators adapted their frameworks to counter asymmetrical threats. They established new nodes, safe zones, and a revitalized cryptographic language to safeguard their existence from 1877 through the 1920s. This was the reload signal. It served as a status update: connection established, system primed, prepared to offer or receive sanctuary. Why was this entrusted to a child? It was a poignant form of biological encryption. Children functioned as mobile links capable of navigating high-friction environments without triggering suspicion. In a paradigm where adult safety was perpetually compromised, children became the couriers of survival codes, ensuring continuity even when primary family structures were fractured. As Maya gazed at the girl in the white dress, she recognized a silhouette of profound resilience. Behind the innocence lay a strategic mission. She turned the photograph over, and under microscopic light, a faint studio seal began to materialize. The investigation had found its next coordinate. Truth often conceals itself within the smallest fragments we inadvertently overlook. What are your thoughts on this reload signal? Is it a beacon of hope or a poignant echo of a fractured past? Share your perspective in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to join us as we decode the next historical ciphers. The epicenter of systemic paradox. Natchez, Mississippi, circa 1900, a geographic coordinate defined by the profound frictions of the era. Once a hub for commodity-based displacement centers, it had transitioned into a stronghold of rigid social stratification. Within an environment where the existence of black families was perpetually subjected to systemic volatility, the Sterling & Sons studio emerged as a rare neutralized space. Sterling & Sons was more than a commercial enterprise. It functioned as a social observatory. From 1892 to 1911, this institution recorded visual evidence of a community striving to assert its dignity amidst waves of structural oppression. The trail led Maya away from Mississippi, following the historical migration currents to Chicago. There she encountered Vanessa Sterling Hughes, a descendant of the Sterling lineage and the custodian of a temporal vessel. James Sterling's wooden chest was not merely a container for personal effects. It was a secure enclosure for hundreds of glass negatives. These were light fossils previously unreleased, preserving the identities of those who chose strategic relocation in pursuit of sanctuary. September 14, 1900. James Sterling's ledger recorded a brief but weighty entry, "The Coleman family, special arrangement." In the coded lexicon of survival networks, a special arrangement implied far more than a rapid photo session. This studio functioned as a clandestine checkpoint along the pathways to liberation. Families preparing to evaporate to transition into new identities in safer territories required authentic proof of their existence, a visual passport for the unseen. As Vanessa lifted the glass negative toward the light, time seemed to crystallize. In its negative state, where light and shadow are inverted, the Coleman family appeared as luminous specters. The father, the mother, and most pivotally, the young girl with the reload signal over her heart. The photograph was no longer an artistic artifact. It was a strategic dossier. The girl's gesture functioned as a verification code confirming, "We are prepared for the transition. The system is primed." At the Art Institute of Chicago, the glass negative was subjected to an ultra-high-resolution optical scanning system. This was not merely enlargement. It was a process of reality reconstruction. Every fabric structure and micro-expression was laid bare. Conservation specialist Robert confirmed the girl's hand signal was a calculated effort, a trained stillness. But the true breakthrough lay in a micro-signifier on the mother's hand, a ring featuring 3 interlaced circles forming a triangle. This was the hallmark of an institutional alignment. Returning to James Sterling's ledger, Maya identified a classification protocol. Families were not just recorded, they were tagged with symbols, stars, circles, triangles. The Coleman family bore the triple circle mark, perfectly matching the ring. This suggested a high-priority status within the network. Reverend Patterson, a field coordinator, had appeared to arrange a large-scale exodus of 12 families. This was not a random departure. It was a strategic withdrawal. Historical data from the Natchez Democrat in 1900 reveals a period of extreme socio-environmental volatility. It was a wave of economic purging targeting Black individuals who had achieved financial independence. Isaac Coleman was a prime example of outsized success. His ownership of 40 acres and the operation of an efficient economic model transformed him into a systemic flashpoint. The result was a process of administrative dispossession, land seized under the guise of tax debt, a form of legalized asset appropriation. The Colemans chose to become invisible before the system could erase them. Maya utilized probabilistic analysis on the 1910 census data. Amidst thousands of redundant names, she cross-referenced the family structure, a couple and 4 children with corresponding age intervals. Finally, in Detroit, Michigan, a hub of industrial ascension, the Coleman family re-emerged. Isaac Esther and their children, Thomas Benjamin, Samuel, and Ruth. They hadn't just survived, they had successfully re-engineered their lives at a new coordinate. Within the 1910 Michigan census, Maya identified a definitive defensive strategy. The Coleman family refused to disclose their previous residence. This was not an act of accidental omission, but a calculated self-erasure. To thrive at a new coordinate, they chose to completely decommission their former frequency in Mississippi, burying their origins to safeguard their future. Ruth Coleman, the child of the reload signal, matured into a pillar of community education. She served at the Second Baptist Church of Detroit, a historic node within the ancient clandestine relief networks. Although Ruth never utilized verbal language to recount her trauma, she maintained the recognition protocol. Her daughter Grace recalled a profound moment of nonverbal synchronization, a specific hand gesture exchanged in silence between her mother and a stranger from the South. It was a high-fidelity connection, requiring no sound, a testament to the shared lexicon of those who navigated the shadows of history. Inside the wooden chest Ruth left behind were meticulously preserved fragments of reality, an 1892 Bible, a handkerchief embroidered with E.C., and most pivotally, a rudimentary displacement schematic. This yellowed parchment was more than a map. It was an escape algorithm. It documented safe houses, arc routes designed to bypass environmental hazards and logistical resupply coordinates. Ruth carried this strategic blueprint for 91 years as a silent record of the price of autonomy. Just as Maya believed the investigation had reached its terminal point, she noticed a small folded swatch of fabric at the very bottom of the chest, an object that might hold the ultimate verification code of the Coleman legacy. As Grace touched the age-yellowed white dress, a physical bridge between the past and the present was established. This was more than a garment. It was a biological testament to existence. Ruth had preserved this dress for nearly a century as a way of safeguarding the primary data of her life. The embroidered flowers along the hem, once captured in the 1900 Natchez photograph, now served as undeniable evidence of a journey through the turbulent frequencies of history. Family is not just blood. It is anyone willing to risk everything to sustain your existence. Ruth's words in her final years redefined the concept of a survival alliance. The reload signal and other hand gestures were not merely codes. They were a curriculum of survival intelligence. Children were taught to decode signals: danger, safety, continue movement. This was a form of collective wisdom operated with extreme sophistication, transforming seemingly vulnerable individuals into proactive agents of their own destiny. The investigation by Maya and Dr. Richardson exposed a profound truth: a clandestine infrastructure spanning the continent. The Second Baptist Church of Detroit was not just a place of worship. It functioned as a central node in a decentralized support network. They constructed a parallel mutual aid system operating beneath the veneer of official social structures. When formal channels retracted their protection, this network provided the security and logistical protocols necessary to ensure the safe displacement of thousands of families. In September 2024 in Detroit, a symbolic convergence took place. 43 descendants of families who had executed strategic migrations stood together. When the Coleman family portrait was projected, it was no longer a stagnant archival record. It was a reactivation code. Those in attendance were the living proof of the cryptographic system's success. They exist because their ancestors knew how to converse in the dark, transmitting hope through silent gestures. This was not merely resistance. This was an expression of strategic genius, a manifestation of love encoded into operational protocols to counter systemic adversity. James, a descendant from Alabama, shared a profound insight into the decades-long silence of their ancestors. It was not an act of forgetting, but a protective filter. Those who came before chose not to transmit the trauma, ensuring that future generations could operate on a frequency of freedom and fearlessness. Yet that silence carried a cost. Miracles of courage were nearly erased from the timeline. Maya's research became the cornerstone for a pivotal shift in museology. In February 2025, the Charles H. Wright Museum inaugurated a permanent exhibition entitled Hidden Signals Post-Emancipation Survival Networks. The centerpiece of the gallery was the Coleman family portrait. Ruth's hand gesture was no longer an enigma. It was celebrated as a testament to collective intelligence. It symbolized a subterranean nation, an invisible infrastructure of mutual protection that endured despite the erasure efforts of mainstream history. The impact of this investigation rippled outward like a chain reaction. From Mississippi to South Carolina, historians began to re-identify patterns of active resistance. We no longer see passive victims. We see architects of survival. They constructed sophisticated communication networks utilizing music symbology and safe houses to navigate through hazardous geographic terrains. While academic journals and documentarians offered widespread acclaim, the most meaningful impact occurred in quiet spaces in living rooms and church basements, where descendants gathered to reassemble the fragments of memory their grandparents had once buried. The photograph of Ruth Coleman in her white dress with her small hand performing the reload signal continues to resonate. It is a reminder that as long as we know how to protect one another, no darkness is permanent. Ruth's narrative does not conclude within the pages of a ledger. Grace has transformed her mother's silence into a supportive ecosystem for a new generation, the Ruth Coleman Scholarship. This is more than financial aid. It is the cultivation of future social architects who will continue to decode and construct community mutual aid models in the modern world. The artifacts, the wooden chest, the Bible, the hand-drawn map, and the white dress have now transitioned into educational entities at the museum. Visitors are not just observing the past, they are witnessing the logistics of liberation. A phenomenon of systemic restoration has occurred. Families separated by a century of migration and geopolitical shifts are reconnecting through the data Maya unearthed. In Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, links that were thought to be dormant are now vibrating on the same frequency. This reunion is no longer driven by the necessity of survival, as in 1900, but by a voluntary alignment to honor those who navigated the darkness. At the Smithsonian Institution, a symbolic transformation has taken place. The cold label of anonymous has been erased, replaced by the radiant identities of Isaac and Esther Coleman. The photograph is no longer a forgotten fragment. It is a manifesto of existence. Ruth Coleman, 1896 to 1987. The girl in the white dress is finally recognized for her true role, a silent guardian of history, a vital node in a security system that spanned over a century. On a February morning in Detroit, amidst the pulse of a city built by the tides of grand migrations, Ruth's photograph remains on Maya's pinboard. When observing the three interlaced fingers of that small child, we do not see a random gesture. We see a generational protection strategy. It is proof that love, when scientifically organized and strategically envisioned, can transcend every barrier of time. Ruth's 91-year silence was not an escape, but a high-level security shroud. She preserved that dress not to wear it again, but to serve as a witness to a fundamental truth: survival is never accidental. It is a masterpiece of will and interconnectivity. Now, her descendants finally understand. This content is a work of historical fiction and serves for educational and entertainment purposes only. While inspired by authentic historical contexts and systemic survival strategies, the narrative characters and specific events are hypothetical reconstructions. This program should not be treated as a definitive historical record or a substitute for formal academic research. Where do you find yourself on this vast map of heritage? Could there be silent ciphers from our ancestors hidden within our very blood and memories that we have yet to decode? If you share our passion for unearthing hidden truths, do not forget to hit like and subscribe. Your presence and your insights are the final pieces required to complete this portrait of true human resilience. We will see you in the next grand decoding.